Coming up on the Mindful Midlife Crisis.
And I'm fortunate to be in a position in my life now where I have the opportunity to really genuinely be of service personally and professionally with what connects to me, and I hope connects to other men, that I'm out there working with. So when I say really being of service, it's more of, can I help men live better, longer, healthier, wealthier, accomplish their goals, maybe help navigate and see their way out of some or through some situations, that they're in? And can I use my experiences, successes, failures to be of service and help guys get where they're trying to go?
Welcome to the Mindful Midlife Crisis, a podcast for people navigating the complexities and possibilities of life's second half. Join your hosts, Billy and Brian, a couple of average dudes who will serve as your armchair life coaches as we share our life experiences, both the good and the bad, in an effort to help us all better understand how we can enjoy and make the most of the life we have left to live in a more meaningful way. Take a deep breath, embrace the present, and journey with us through the Mindful Midlife Crisis.
Welcome to the Mindful Midlife Crisis. I'm your host, Billy, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend, Brian, on the bass. Brian, how you doing over there, man?
I am glorious today.
Glorious. Your text earlier today did not suggest that you're feeling so glorious.
One can be glorious even though they've been inoculated a couple times in a few different arms and are reaping the wonderful benefits of all that experience. But I can still be glorious. I'm ready to do this podcast, Billy.
Excellent. You're a trooper. I will give you that. You are a glorious trooper. So wait, so you got the booster shot today and you got the flu shot. Did they put them in different arms?
Different arms. Yeah, they do different arms because I haven't had them together before. I guess if you have them together and you didn't have a reaction, you can get them in the same arm. But don't quote me on that. Consult your doctor. I'm half with it right now. So
I'm going in on Friday to get both of I'm getting the booster shot and I'm getting the flu shot. So listening to you and I'm listening to some of my friends talk about how wiped out they've been after getting the booster shot. I guess Saturday is going to be just a no day whatsoever.
Yeah, get a good book or a bunch of movies or something and sit on the couch, man. It's the best thing you can do.
I think it's going to be a Squid Game day. I'm just going to watch all sorts of episodes of Squid Game.
Have you watched that yet?
I watched the first 4 episodes and it's kind of awesome. I'm not going to lie.
I've heard it's great. I haven't delved in yet, but I plan to.
It's good stuff. Well, last episode we had Wendy Battles on, and such a wonderful lady. She does the Reinvention Rebels podcast, and she works and interviews women between the ages 50 and 90. So we thought we'd balance it out here. And we are bringing on Greg Scheinman today. Greg helps men maximize middle age and achieve a better quality of life. He's the host of the Midlife Male podcast and newsletter, as well as a performance coach, author, speaker, advisor, and investor to brands that help men live better and healthier. A former entrepreneur, Greg was founder and CEO of Team Baby Entertainment, which he sold to former Disney CEO Michael Eisner. Again, Brian, our guests just knocking it out of the park week after week. Matt Hazard, if you are listening, do something with your life, would you?
Step up your game, man, besides getting a few letters behind your name. Come on, dude.
He was also a partner at Ince Group, a large risk management insurance firm which sold to BRP, a NASDAQ company, in 2020. He competes in the D10 Decathlon, High Rocks, and other adventure challenges annually. He has also been a loving husband to his wife, Kate, for the last 20 years, and the two of them have 2 teenage boys, Auden and Harper. You can check him out at www.midlifemail.com. Welcome to the show, Greg Scheinman.
Hey, guys. Thank you. Wow. Okay. read the entire bio. Look at that. Okay. There's no way I could possibly live up to any of this. And I want to thank you for adding the word loving. I don't believe I typed the word loving in front of husband. So I want to thank you for throwing that in there. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm your wingman here, Greg, looking out for your best interests, so.
This is great. I got a bass player and a wingman. Okay. And I just scored some points with my wife. This is terrific. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We got Brian on the bass. We got me on the ukulele. Greg plays some guitar. We talked about, starting our dad band here at some point. So, does Houston have a good music scene? Because Minneapolis has an amazing music scene.
We have a pretty good music scene. Austin has a great music scene.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And I've heard good things about the Minneapolis music scene. I can tell you I was in Minneapolis twice. Once I went to college at University of Michigan, and we drove because we were in the Final Four. I was there with the Fab 5 years. So year one, made that pilgrimage to go see the guys in the Final Four. And the second time, of course, I had to come and see Target, the Target headquarters. I was trying to sell these DVDs, which was better to try to sell them to Target than out of the trunk of my car, as I had been doing before. So I flew in to Minneapolis, and stayed too far away from the Target offices. And remember, it was the coldest and longest walk of my life. So
yeah. You must have been there in January or February. So, and March Madness is actually in April. So you really haven't had a chance to fully appreciate Minneapolis when the weather is nice. It's really beautiful here when the weather is nice, which is 4 months out of the year. And then it's a crapshoot after that.
There you go. That's what we used to say about Michigan when I was in school there. It was like, as soon as it got really nice, that's when I was on a plane home. I was like, it just doesn't work.
Well, that's kind of how I feel now. I actually just got back from 2 months in Europe. I was in Portugal for a month and a half, and I was in Spain for 2 weeks. And I came back in November, and I'm going to be in Minnesota through December. Like, that was very, very poor planning on my part. So the next adventure, I will make sure that I am nowhere near Minnesota when there's any chance that the weather is going to be below 40 degrees. Like, I don't even know what I was thinking when I planned that adventure, but what do you do?
We're thinking the same way. You're trying to get out of Minnesota at certain times. We're thinking the same thing, like in Houston, like we need to be out of here when it's 110, we're trying to figure it out how to plan. Well, I think Portugal and Spain sound good.
So, Greg, we always ask our guests to talk about the 10 roles that they play in life. So what are the 10 roles that you listed here?
My 10: husband, parent, dad. I stuck in parentheses that those are different, that I'm happy to get into that. Okay. Athlete, coach, provider, son, brother, creator. I think I did, what is it? I did, wait, I can't count. Connector, server, speaker. Okay. So I don't know how many more than 10 that is.
No, that's great. And so right off the bat here, I do want to talk about, you did put in parentheses here that dad and parent, those are two different things. So elaborate on that.
Yeah, appreciate that. First, I don't know. Did I even thank you guys for having me on? We just got right into it, and we were laughing and hey, well, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah. That's what we do. We just get right after it here. When we got a good guest on, we just want to hit the floor running. So.
Yeah, and I don't know who Matt Hazard is, but I'm sure he's fine. Okay, he doesn't have to step up.
He's not. Never ever compliment Matt Hazard. He is a son of a bitch.
Okay, well, I can tell you, I'm not sure that I can keep up or not, but I'm sure that's great. Yeah, so to actually get to your question, I think being a dad is easy. Like, being a dad is fun. That's the playing with the kids. That's being the fun guy. That's just the eating out with them and coaching the teams, and wrestling around, especially being a boy dad. Like, being a dad is fun. Like, love being a dad. Being a parent is really hard. That's where the discipline comes in, and the accountability and the life lessons, and hey, look, sorry, buddy, don't think Astro World is where you should be going. Okay. I got to parent you on this. I got to make a judgment call, here, no matter being the bad guy. Sometimes it's a tougher, more responsible role. I talk about that with a lot of guys. Being a dad is great. It's it's easy. It's fun being their friend, but there's a time when you've got to be a parent where you may not be popular. You may not, not here to always be your friend. I've got to be your father right now. So that's why I separated those two.
Brian, as a boy dad, does that completely resonate with you?
Absolutely. And I could even take that a step further. I could say anybody can be a dad. All you got to do is do the deed and succeed to be a dad. To be a father, to your point, Greg, would be the fun stuff, and you get to do all the stuff with the kids, and then parent, of course. That's a really good distinction, and I completely agree with you, because it is
100% applicable, of course, whether we have boys or girls. I just got 2 boys, and I guess you get what you can handle, right?
I've got 3 boys.
That's why I don't have kids, because I knew I wouldn't be able to handle them. So So you said that being a dad is what you're looking forward to most in the second half of life. And you also said husband. Can you talk about that as well?
Yeah, again, I mean, family is first. I talk about 6 F's, and kind of the way that I look at life and work with other men as well as myself. It's all deeply personal that now has kind of become, hey, let me talk to some other people about it. But family has always been number one. That's the first F of the 6, and everything comes after that, because without that, what am I doing the rest of this stuff for? So yeah, fatherhood and parenting and being a dad is absolutely number one. But I do think a lot of guys, maybe take the marriage and being a husband for granted after certainly a long period of time. My wife and I, we've been together 25 years, 20, coming up on 20 married, 25, together. And
congratulations.
Thank you, I think. Yeah.
No, dude. I was trying to help you out by saying loving husband. Don't say exactly. I think. You're undoing it.
Greg, in these days, that is exceptional.
Say it's a priority in the second phase of my life to try to actually get it right. Okay, that should count for something, all right? But it's like that. I think it's easy to take one another for granted. Again, it's easy to become complacent, and we get caught up in putting everybody in a way ahead of ourselves and putting the kids and non things ahead of our relationship. And the next thing you know, like, we're 3 years away from being empty nesters. And you're like, okay, if you have not maintained value as a couple, maintained your individuality, your own, creativity and curiosity, but also really placed value on the relationship and continue to date your wife and vice versa, enjoy each other's company and not just go through the motions, you end up in an empty house where it's just the 2 of you. You got nothing left to talk about, really, in there. And that may catch you, I think, a bit by surprise. So I think that it's top of mind right now, I think, for us, because we can kind of see 3 years from now, it's going to go, we're going to send our oldest one off to college next year. And then in 2 years, okay, both boys will be out of the house. It's like, okay, it's an amazing time to, again, reconnect and think about the future. And do you respect one another? Do we like one another? Do we enjoy spending time with one another? Do we have other things to talk about outside of just, these other things? Because we got a lot of life left ahead of us. So, valuing that relationship, putting family first, it's important. At least it is to me, and it seems to be to us. So
I like that you talked about continued dating your wife. Actually, we had another person say that when we talked to Scott and Lee back in episode 11. Scott is kind of in a similar situation where I think in about 5 years, the 2 of them are going to be empty nesters. And he talked about it's going to be important for my wife and I to continue to date each other. And I like that, because marriage isn't the end all. And I'm speaking as somebody who's never been married, but like, I guess, I like to think of that idea of perpetually dating is really important, right? And even like for me, even if I never get married, but if I'm with somebody, it's going to be important for us to continue to go out on dates and to go out and explore and do things. And Brian, I'll kind of defer to you here as our resident married man.
No doubt. I mean, you have to keep the relationship alive somehow, and doing things, of course, bonds people naturally when you go through the same experience. So absolutely, I think you have to keep dating your spouse while you're with them.
And I'll flip it. I mean, I think both sides are valid. I mean, because we are talking about midlife. We're talking about being mindful. We're talking about the proverbial midlife crisis, that's there too. I see the other side as well. Unfortunately, a lot of marriages end in divorce. You get to that period where, we've been married for couples that have been married for a very long time or longer time. Again, the kids leave, their identity was wrapped up in the kids, maybe not in the relationship. Maybe the next phase of their life is not best spent together. I see both sides. We only get one shot at this. So the goal ultimately is to really be happy. But if you are happy and you are committed and you are wanting to make it work and it does work, then obviously make the most of it. But on the flip side, make the most out of your life that you possibly can. Do as much good as you can, do as little damage as you possibly can along the way. And I see both sides.
That sounds like it connects very well to your wanting to be a server in the second half of your life, is to continue do things and not do damage to other people. So can you talk about that? Why are you looking forward to being a server in the second half of your life?
I've been in some form of sales my entire life or career. And I always tried to approach sales in a consultative capacity, in an advisory capacity, in a being of service capacity. Not always easy, especially considering some of the things that I was selling, at various times, overall. And I'm fortunate to be in a position in my life now where I have the opportunity to really genuinely be of service personally and professionally with what connects to me and I hope connects to other men, that I'm out there working with. So honestly, really being of service, it's more of, can I help men live better, longer, healthier, wealthier, accomplish their goals, maybe help navigate and see their way out of some or through some situations, that they're in. And can I use my experiences, successes, failures to be of service and help guys get where they're trying to go. And ultimately, I think that trickles down. It helps them show up better as husbands, helps them show up better as fathers, maybe get control of their health. I mean, it's not just guys that I hear from. A lot of times it's the women that I hear from about, hey, I'd like my husband to have somebody to work with and talk to and be it. And sometimes it's the guy who's a little bit more gun shy about taking that step.
And that's a question that I want to dive into a little bit deeper when we get back here. So we're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Greg Scheinman. Thank you for listening to the Mindful Midlife Crisis.
Thank you for listening to the Mindful Midlife Crisis. If you're enjoying what you've heard so far, please do us a favor and hit the subscribe button. Also, giving our show a quick 5-star review with a few kind words helps us on our quest to reach the top of the podcast charts. Finally, since you can't make a mixtape for your friends and loved ones like you used to do, share this podcast with them instead. We hope our experiences resonate with others and inspire people to live their best lives. Thanks again. And now, let's take a minute to be present with our breath. If you're listening somewhere safe and quiet, close your eyes and slowly inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly exhale for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's do that one more time. Inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly exhale for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and open your eyes. You feel better? We certainly hope so. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the Mindful Midlife Crisis. We are here talking to Greg Scheinman. He is the host of the Midlife Male podcast. He works with men so that they can live better, healthier, wealthier lives in the second half. Perfect for our show right here. So, Greg, you said that some might consider your life path a bit unconventional. And if you don't mind, could you start just talking about the loss of your dad and the imprisonment of your brother? Because those are definitely life situations that many of us have not had. And just kind of curious, how much do those two experiences fuel your drive to help middle-aged men live their best lives now?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. So I was 17, going on almost 18 when my father passed away. We were 3 boys. I've got 2 younger brothers. Mother and father were together. My father had cancer. Gave him 6 months, lasted, made it 2 years, but unfortunately didn't win that battle, and passed away when I was 17, almost 18 and heading off to college. My middle brother was 15 or so at the time, 14, 15, or a couple years young. And our youngest brother was 8, super young. Obviously, it throws everything into, a tailspin, and pivotal moment for a teenager, again, going off to college, and it changed everything, for me. It took a while to get healthy, for me. It changed things for the worse for a while in terms of going off the rails a little bit, losing that father figure, losing the mentorship, there. And at the same time being off in college where there's drinking and partying and everything else, so I self-medicated through a lot of my depression, my grief, didn't really want to come home, a whole lot in there. Now I'm able to use it and see it again through a different lens, through much more motivational and inspirational lens, been able to circle back, regain my own health, a different perspective on life, and say, look, my dad was 47 when he passed away. I'll be 49 next month. I'm in the bonus time, the way I see it. So how can I make the most, again, of this time? And how can I take better care of myself? How can I live life with the perspective that you don't know necessarily where the end is? You may not get a wake up call, or a chance, you've got to take advantage of every situation and every opportunity that you have, in front of you. So that's the way I see it now, to get over the grief, get over the feeling sorry for yourself, get over the loss. I think I've said this before, a slow learner and a late bloomer, in terms of finding mentors, friends, father-like figures. It's one of the reasons I started the podcast, as well. So I get to hear from other men, and learn from them and be inspired by their journeys and their stories and try to take some of those things away. So I think when you experience death, you start to see things very differently. And also realize that 47 is not old, of course, at all. You think of your father when you're a kid as old or older. When you start getting up there, you start to realize how young it actually is, and how much more is ahead of you. And that's something that you can't choose. You can't choose to get cancer. Whereas, the situation with my brother, unfortunately, he was great at what he did. Unfortunately, what he did was very illegal, so he spent some time away. So when you think about the loss of life, and then you think about loss of your freedom, I can't think of two things that are more impactful and pivotal. So I looked at that as an opportunity. Like, I can't imagine having my freedom taken away, my health or my freedom. So what do I want to do to preserve and protect both my health and my freedom? I want to be able to go where I want, when I want, work how I want, do things because I want to, not necessarily because I have to, and take as good a care of myself as I possibly can. Those two experiences help to shape me into that kind of perspective, and that way of living. Now, it took a lot longer probably than it should have, but I'm here now. So now I'm doing it and kind of living my message, and again, trying to serve and help other guys find and live theirs.
When your brother got caught and was sent to prison, I'm curious, how far along in college were you? Were you out of college?
Oh, we were out. Yeah, we were out. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Were you still
I was out of college. We were long out. We were in career mode. Again, not a good career choice. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and the reason why I asked that, because I was trying to figure out whether or not you saw that as something that where you were, because you had talked about like you weren't making good decisions yourself. And so was that something where you were like, oh shit, how close was I to making a similar mistake as my brother? Or were you not anywhere in that parallel?
Not in that parallel. I was able to course correct myself. Mine was more on the partying and lifestyle side, and just kind of drowning the grief and sorrows and insecurity issues and all that baggage that I was carrying with just too much alcohol, quite frankly. And unfortunately, I was able to course correct that over time. Silly way of saying, like, yeah, I just fucking fixed the problem. It's what I basically did, mm-hmm. and got past that, and tried again and still trying to be the best family member I can, brother, son, now father and everything else, and help him through his experiences that my brother had. Unfortunately, he's doing fantastic now, so there is a light at the end of the tunnel and you can come out better the other side on that for sure. But again, I just look at it as loss of life, loss of freedom, two things you don't want to experience. And can you make the most of the time that you do have? And if you make a mistake or mistakes, can you come back from them? And you can. And again, we're living longer, healthier, wealthy. The middle is the sweet spot. It's not the beginning of the end. It's the sweet spot. And we should use all these experiences to be better going forward.
It's interesting that you said that the middle is the sweet spot, because way back in episode 1, when we talked about what exactly is a midlife crisis, and we took a look at the research of that, and like guys our age all report while they're in the thick of it that this is the most stressful time of their life, or this is the time when they have the least amount of satisfaction. But then when they ask men when they're in their mid 60s to 70, what was the best time of your life? They all reflect and say right around my 40s. So it's kind of that thought that, you're too far in the forest to see the trees, that sort of thing. It's really difficult for you to realize that the 20s is just a shit show, because you're just kind of figuring out how to be mature. And then I'm sure for a lot of people in their 30s, like then they're getting into real life career mode or even family mode. So you're trying to figure that out. And then you've got a little practice. And so by the time you hit your 40s, you're in your stride, but you've been enduring so much, or you've been trying to figure out so much that you almost are running on automatic. I don't know if you feel that way or if your clients feel that way when you talk to them.
I think it's all of the above, if that makes sense. I mean, I know some really old 30-year-olds and I know some really young 60-year-olds. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's really a mindset situation. And I think there are guys that are maybe in their crisis and they don't see it. I think there are guys who have come out of their crisis and have learned a tremendous amount and will be better for that self-exploration. And I think there are a lot of guys now that are going to avoid it altogether, because when I speak to younger guys in their 30s, that demographic is very self-aware, much more in touch with their emotions and vulnerabilities, and in a way asking for help and seeing ahead. And I speak to a lot of successful guys in their 30s. And one of the reasons they're reaching out is because, hey, save me 5 years, help me see ahead a little bit. I'm getting closer to 4 of these things. This is what I'm thinking. I don't want to be this. I don't want to be that. Which of these stereotypes may or may not be true? How should I be planning, preparing, and doing so that when I get there, maybe I can avoid this altogether? There. And the harder one is the guys that, are right smack in the middle of it, maybe don't realize it. They're a little bit more in denial, or, hey, this is the way, it's supposed to be, or from the outside looking in, everything looks fine. I don't really have a problem. I'm dealing with, it's Groundhog's Day for me. Like, I may not be super happy, but I'm not super sad either. I mean, looks pretty good from the outside, got the wife, got the kids, got the job, got this, can't really afford to quit, don't really know if I want to stay, and they don't really have anybody to talk to about it, or they don't really want to talk about it. Or they look to the left and look to the right and go, oh, they're in it too. Like, okay, like, I guess this is kind of the way it's supposed to be. I don't believe that to be the case, but that's a tougher one.
Yeah, Brian and I will often joke, but we're serious that women are way smarter than we are. And I like to think it's because they've developed that emotional maturity earlier than we have, or they embrace that emotional maturity and they embrace emotional intelligence more so than guys do. And my real concern is, like, when we go back to episode 2 and we talk about men who are our age, men who are between the ages of like 40 and 60, have the highest suicide rates. And when we looked at it, it's because they lack that emotional intelligence and how to navigate these crises after so long. And it's nice to know that there's someone like you out there who's helping them navigate that, especially because, like, you're another male. Because, Greg, when I see you, like, you and Brian are very much alike in that you kind of have this alpha male about you, but you also have this emotional intelligence about you. So you're more than just a guy's guy. You actually have the ability to say, no, let's sit down and let's kind of talk about these things that you're saying, these feelings that you're having, these emotions that are rolling through there, and let's sort them all out so that, we can make sense of it and we can grow from it instead of shoving it into a box when all of a sudden it explodes and the next thing you know, you're taking your own life.
I can tell you, I mean, that's an extreme and that's a super unfortunate situation. And I'm not a therapist, doctor, or anything like that. I'm just, to your point, I'm just a guy who's about to turn 49, who has had these experiences. I can tell you who did not talk about his feelings, emotions, thought I had all the answers, thought I could handle it all myself, did a pretty good job, for a while, but you realize you're not fooling anybody, or even if you are, you're still not fooling yourself. So I think what at least for me, try to be authentic, actually be authentic, be transparent, be vulnerable, again, be of service, put it out there. And maybe that connects and maybe that's helpful to people. And maybe it takes away some of the stigma of, I don't want to go to therapy, or there's nothing wrong with me. And you're absolutely right. Maybe there isn't anything wrong with you. Maybe you don't need therapy. Maybe you actually just need a friend. Maybe you need a little bit more accountability. Maybe you need to just dress a little bit better to get your confidence up. Maybe you need to just go for a walk in the mornings to get your head together. You don't have to get jacked, or you don't have to be unhealthy, or you don't have to be extremely fit. You just need to be moving, Maybe you need to spend a little bit more time with your family. Maybe you need to not skip your kids' games to be at the office. There's a lot of layers to this in here to cover, and I don't totally remember the exact part of the question that was here as I go off on this tangent. But one, you are right, and I hear from a lot of women, okay, because they seem to be in touch and they want to reach out and help their men be better. I feel that the men that I work with and that I hear from are more along the lines of wanting to improve, that, hey, again, I don't think I necessarily need a doctor. Don't think I need don't think I need therapy. Don't think I'm super depressed. No, but I know something's not exactly right. I know, and this is what I talk about when I turn your F's into A's, okay, maybe you don't have to get straight A's per se. Like, fashion and style may not be that important to you. You maybe not have to turn that all the way into an A and go blow a lot of money on clothing. But your family should be important. Your finances should be important. Your fitness and your health should be important. You should look like you didn't roll out of bed or still exercising in the clothing that you wore in high school, overall. And fun. Guys are not having a whole lot of fun in middle age. why aren't they playing bass in every band in Minnesota, Brian? Why are we giving up our hobbies? Why aren't they still playing guitar? Why aren't they, doing whatever? Why do we give those things up? And you're traveling around and doing things. We bring more of that stuff back. It's not an either or. It's a how do we incorporate all of these things into our lives to live fully.
Well, you just alluded to the 6 F's there. And so what I want to do is I want to take a break because I want to do a deeper dive as to what the 6 F's are and how you work with your clients with regards to those 6 F's. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with Greg Scheinman. Thank you for listening to the Mindful Midlife Crisis.
Thanks for listening to the Mindful Midlife Crisis. We will do our best to put out new content every Wednesday to help get you over the midweek hump. If you'd like to contact us, or if you have suggestions about what you'd like us to discuss, feel free to email us at mindfulmidlifecrisis@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at mindful_midlife_crisis. Check out the show notes for links to the articles and resources we reference throughout the show. Oh, and don't forget to show yourself some love every now and then too. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the Mindful Midlife Crisis. We are still here with Greg Scheinman. He is the host of the Midlife Mail podcast. You can check him out at www.midlifemail.com. Greg, you alluded to the 6 F's, and this is kind of your foundation with working with your clients. So can you talk about what are the 6 F's and how can they reinvent the midlife mail?
The 6 F's. Family, as we touched on before, is always first. Fitness, which is number 2, which is really health. We can talk about it. Finance, which is really also your career, your financial goals. Food, which is nutrition. Fashion, which is style, to an extent. Style, confidence, we can dive down to that. And then fun, which is one that I wavered on for a while in terms of that word per se, and where does it fit in the connotation of middle age or maturity, but quite frankly, that should almost be at the top, almost be at the front. And that's the one I get asked about mostly by guys.
Why is that? Is it just because at some point in time, as we age, we just become less fun?
Maybe. I don't know what it is per se that seems to be prevalent in a lot of men. And I know it was for me for a while, especially you get married, you get a job, you have kids, you start to give up some of your hobbies. There's not enough time, so to speak. So again, you stop playing with your buddies in that band, or maybe you don't, right? You stop writing. And some guys, they stop exercising, or they stop competing, or they stop these things that they were passionate about or that they always did. And even if you've come up playing sports, through school, and as you continue to get older, the game either passes you by, or when are you going to play another baseball game ever again? For some kids, once they get past high school, play college ball or little league, so they stop doing a lot of these things, and traveling becomes harder. We're thinking about, again, the other F, finances, and money, and family. I've got a house, I got a mortgage. Maybe I can't just take off on my own anymore for that weekend camping trip. So fun seems to take a back seat for a while. And it's unfortunate because we also dovetail back to wanting to be happy. We need time alone. We need time with our friends. We need time to our hobbies, to express ourselves, embrace our curiosity, exercise, again, whatever else it's into. And I think a lot of guys want to talk about fun because they want to find a way to bring it back. They want to find a way to bring it back that's okay, that's acceptable, that doesn't come off as selfish or self-serving or unhealthy, in a way. And it doesn't mean, meeting your buddies at the bar, or staying out late, or stopping off at the strip club, or, playing, could be 27 holes of golf. I don't know either. I don't know. And we drink at the 9th hole. We drink at the 18th hole. There are a lot of ways to have fun and find a way to incorporate it into your life that your partner, spouse, can and will support. that can bring your family into it. Again, just make you a better, happier, healthier person. And when you let that stuff go, everything seems much harder. And it's harder, again, to do your job. It's harder to walk through the door with a smile on your face. It's harder, again, to give back and be of service and do things for everybody else when you're not having any fun yourself.
Yeah, that connects to when we talked to Dr. Yvette Erasmus, and she asked me, what's the point of this trip? What's your intention? And I had said, I just want to be able to dance again. Like, I want to be able to just cut loose and go and see live music and just rock out like the way that I used to back in the day. And I just saw there's a Weezer tribute band that plays here in the Twin Cities. They are called Pleaser. Here's a plug for Pleaser. If you ever get a chance to go see Pleaser, they play whatever Weezer song you need right at that moment. It is just awesome. And I haven't seen full band live music in a really long time because of COVID. So it was fun to go out there, but even still, I was still kind of hesitant. Like I didn't dance all out like I normally would, that kind of thing. And so I'm still trying to kind of get that back. You talked about, I stopped playing softball and two-hand touch football probably about 5, 6 years ago. And I was thinking, I think last summer, I don't need to go back and play softball. I don't need to go back and play two-hand touch football, but I'm missing out on that competition piece. That competition piece for me is fun. It's motivating. Like, I don't like to lose. So I like that you incorporate that idea of fun. And it sounds like so many people our age forget about that. Brian, I imagine still playing bass is so much fun. Like I said, you're in a bunch of different bands. Like, it's got to be fun for you.
It is. I wouldn't do it if it wasn't fun. I don't know if you know this or not, but loading gear in and out of venues really stinks, especially when you get old. But I still do it because I love playing enough to make it worthwhile,
And you play in a variety of bands. I'm curious about that, because you're doing Gen X Jukebox, right? But then you're also doing this other band where it's kind of like fun punk covers of poppy tunes. So, like, what's kind of the motivation to be in a couple different bands that play wide varieties of music? Because sometimes people just find their niche and they go after that.
Oh, connecting with other musicians is the easy answer to that one. Playing with a different group of musicians is like having to solve another problem again, but it's a fun problem to solve. You know what I mean? And you always have to be listening and how can I contribute to this thing that's happening in the best way possible to make the group look the best way possible. You know what I mean? So for me, that's a challenge that never solves itself. And plus performing has always been, I've been doing it for 40 years now. So it's like, it's just natural for me,
Does that tap into the scientist brain of yours where you like to figure out the problem?
No, I'd say that's different. Music's definitely different than that.
You don't approach it from a scientific approach. You approach it
don't. No. I absolutely do not. I approach it like the instrument is part of me. I don't even think about it. Like most of the time I'm playing, I don't even have to think just because I've done it. So, I don't have to go, oh, I'm going to go to an A now and the next is D and nothing like that. It's just all, I've been doing it so long. It's all in there.
Right. That's the difference between you and me playing a bass guitar, because I'm like, okay, where does my finger go for the A?
Yeah, I've been playing so long, it's like it's a part of me. As I'm talking now, put it this way, do you think about when you talk? Like, do you think about it as you're doing it? Because playing bass for me is kind of like talking now. I don't have to think about it. I do it.
You know me, I overthink everything. So, Greg, how about you? Just, because you play guitar, and I don't know what your level of experience is with it. So that's the fun piece, I imagine, for you. So how long have you played guitar?
So I started playing when I was 13. I still have to think about it, like, unlike Brian, I still have to think about it. And I have the best job in our band. I get to play rhythm guitar around a bunch of phenomenal musicians. So to me, I have the best job. Like, I can practically like just turn it down and be like, you guys just go to work. Like I've got an amazing job in the band, but where you've been doing it for 40 years straight on, Brian, and it's second nature. I had a lot of years where I did not pick up a guitar, for like 10 years. Again, it was a hobby, that fell by the wayside. I didn't have any guitars around, or they were buried under the bed and never came out, and, unloaded a few as we were moving. And I was like, you're not going to play that anymore. It's like, really, I can't believe some of the stuff I unloaded, and sold. And it was like, why am I giving that up? And I've been really fortunate to have some friends that just are proactive, in different aspects of bringing things back, saying, hey, my buddy Steven is a drummer. We're going to start a band, like, okay, in our 40s. Sure. Like, it's like, I want to have a band, and found some great musicians and some great guys. And to your point, also, when you bring new guys in, it totally changes the dynamic, and it
absolutely
becomes more interesting in a way, like, oh, this guy brings this to this, and how do you play with that? And whether it's a band or again, whether it's sports, or no matter what it is, it's really the camaraderie, in a way, that develops, and the relationships that develop from it. Like athletes say this too, when they're done playing their sport, it's not even so much the sport. They miss the locker room. You miss the camaraderie. You miss all of those things. So, I think, having these hobbies, having these communities, developing that camaraderie, you see people pick up, again, whether it's 5Ks, 10Ks, triathlons, there's a community. If you're a cyclist, there's a community. It's trying to be a part of something, and not just letting these hobbies and activities just completely go away. Because everything you want to do still exists, and it exists in any age. And you mentioned this phrase, like, back in the day. Like, at some point, we're going to just eliminate the back in the day phrase. I didn't do it back in the day. Like, I just do it. Maybe there's some things I did back in the day that I'm never going to do again, and that's probably for a good reason. But why do we think just because we did something back in the day and now we're older, we can't do it anymore? We still can. Just might be doing it differently, a little bit slower, or whatever it may be.
Was that my clearance to play with Legos again, Greg?
Hey, do it, okay? Do it. I got a garage full of them.
Yeah, me too.
You're in like one of those plastic bins. It's like 200 pounds. I can never get rid of the thing. Every time we're ready to get rid of it, my wife's like, I can't get rid of all those Legos and all those memories. I'm like, 200 pounds. Can I curse this? The fucking Legos sitting in the garage since our kids were like 7 years old. That will be there forever. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So you talked about fun. So outside of fun, which one is the hardest for you to keep aligned in your life?
Oh, finance, for sure. Finance and money. This dichotomy between not being motivated by money, but yet wanting to provide for my family everything I want to provide for them, and not having them want for anything, and myself too. Look, a lifestyle and taste and desires that I want. That dichotomy between how much is enough, how much work to live to work, the details. You guys are much more detailed guys. I can already tell with the podcast notes and the pausing for the breaks and the lesson plans and science. I'm like shit. I'm gonna do that. I just want to set stuff on auto pay and like never see it again. Like I'm not that machine that keeps spitting out cash. I hope it never stops. Like this is the hard one for me. Again, back to parenting and being a dad. And again, really being a man, or just being like a guy who's like getting through it. Okay. Taking care of your taxes and balancing your portfolio, if you will, and how much is enough. And we got to put 2 kids through school, and you got a mortgage and you got 2 cars and you got things you want to do. The finance part is absolutely for me the hardest one. And it's obviously super, super important, to take care of, but it's not in this quest to just dominate, to hustle and grind and make all this money. It's more about how much is enough? How much do we need? Am I being, again, authentic and truthful and purposeful to the work that I'm doing? Being compensated for it in a manner that it helps me and my family do what we want to do. And when is enough also? Because time is money. And what I want more time, more freedom. And when I have time and freedom, I absolutely want the capital to be able to use it the way I want to, because that helps me make better choices or not do things I don't want to. If I don't have to accept a gig or a client or anything, purely for the financial aspect of it, that's one of the ways I feel like I can maximize and optimize my life. I can agree to spend less or live a certain way for the opportunity to be freer with my choices.
Well put.
Yeah. Where were you when I was 25? Because like I wish I would have had some. And the thing is, I probably had someone like this when I was 25 telling me these things, but because I was 25, I didn't listen. So I wonder how much of like the message that you share, it all relates to 20 somethings, but do you think many of them just aren't ready to hear what you have to say? Like, do you see that resistance in your teenage sons, or are they a little bit more mature than the average teenage boy?
I mean, going back at 25, I was drunk at the bar running up my mom's credit card. and not anywhere remotely near the space of responsibility, and certainly not financial responsibility. And I think one of it comes obviously from your products of your environment. On the one hand, I was fortunate to be raised in an environment where we didn't want from anything. If anything, it was tipped to like things were too easy, in a way. Well, everybody doesn't have that, like when I got out into the quote unquote realer world, or went off to college and saw things differently, and other kids that had to work while they were in college, to put themselves through. One of these things were very eye-opening, to me. And as I said, slow learner, late bloomer. I didn't have mentorship in that regard. There were things that were provided and I was able to do. So I didn't have a lot of financial responsibility. When I started to having to earn a living, start realizing again what things cost and how you have to get your shit together and what you need to do in order to make things happen for yourself. All this developed later for me. I've tried as an entrepreneur. I had some success. I had a number of failures too. I've gone from, having some cash to being broke, to having a little cash, to being broke again, to, doing things that, businesses where the products I was selling, the companies I was starting and working and scaling, nothing that anybody necessarily needed, to shifting into a mid-sized company, professional services, to something everybody needed, but it was far less entrepreneurial, for me, but had far greater ROI, if you will, there. And then ultimately kind of culminating, with a sale. And again, everybody sees things differently. You hand somebody X amount of dollars and they go, hell yeah, like, let's go. Like, now I'm only give them 100 million. I'm only 900 away from $1 billion. Like, let's go. Like that's what they're dialed in for. That's what they want. You hand another guy some money and he gets on stage, goes, thank you, Seattle. Good night. Walks off the stage to never come back. He's very happy with his one hit, and the residuals. For everybody's just wired differently on that. I think the real key and a lot of, what I try to talk about and work on is finding what's right for you, finding what works for you. Not everyone's cut out to be an entrepreneur. There's nothing wrong with working for a big company, out there and not having the weight of the whole thing on your shoulders. There's nothing wrong with making a ton of money. There's nothing wrong with making exactly what you need. Okay with it. There's nothing wrong with loving your career way more than that career pays. And the flip side of that is sometimes, hey, maybe something wrong with like really not enjoying what you're doing. Okay. But it pays really well. And then those guys are like, hey, I got to find something else to do. At a certain point that tips, like maybe now I do leave my job and follow my passion. It's all got to be figured out within the framework of what works for you and what's responsible. Single, and it's just you. I'm going to talk about this with a buddy of mine very soon. Single and it's just you. Make any decision you want. Great. Married, kids, mortgage, tuitions, everything else. You kind of can't, You got to think about what's the responsible thing to do based on, hey, you signed up for this, man. There's no cutting and running, from those responsibilities. Like that doesn't work in the framework of our conversation or work together. You got to figure out how to make both work.
I kind of just got excited there when you said you're single, you can do whatever you want to do, because that's sort of the stage I am in right now in my life, because I'm on this leave and I've got a lot of options, and it's a lot of times the paradox of choice and analysis by paralysis weigh me down. And I've been trying not to let those things get in the way of what is really a pivotal transition period for me. And so I want to thank you for saying that, because I actually kind of got giddy with just hearing you say that. One thing that you were talking about is your ability to diversify whatever it is that you feel maybe the market needs, or whatever you feel you can provide in terms of like a service or a brand. And you've talked about the different services that you provide. I kind of wanted to switch topics a little bit, because you also do some promotion of anti-aging brands that you're working with. And I follow you on Instagram, and you said that in a post recently that you don't like the term anti-aging because you're all for aging, but you're all for aging well. So what does aging well look like to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just the term anti-aging as it's come up, and it wasn't me who said that I didn't like it first. It was my wife who said it to me. And then I was like, yeah, actually that makes sense. That's much more on point and on message, with who we are, to not be anti-aging. Again, to kind of I like to think we're wearing this aging thing, as a bit of a badge of honor, like, look at how well we're aging in a way, as opposed to being,
we made it.
Yeah, we're winning aging, okay, right now. Like, that's how we're looking at it. So the term anti-aging has a connotation that there's something wrong, with aging, and that we should be against it. And I don't think that that's the case. I think that, again, we have the opportunity to live better, stronger, healthier, wealthier. I've said these things now a couple of times, as we get older, as we age, and use these experiences to the collective benefit, of ourselves and everybody else that we're around. So when I talk about, how to age well, again, I think these are all very personal and individual choices, but there are some things that I feel strongly with. I mean, look, you should take care of your physical and your mental health. So again, you should be exercising. And that's not about being jacked, or ripped, and you don't have to take as many photos with your shirt off as I do. It's not the aesthetics. I say the aesthetics are a bonus of living well. If you're eating well and you're training well, you're going to look better, period. But you also can give 10 guys the exact same workout and the exact same diet, and they can all go do it for a year. And everybody's going to look different. I'm saying be the best of what you're genetically predispositioned to be. That goes along with living well and aging well. You want to dye your hair, dye your hair. You want to get the hair transplant, get the hair transplant. If whatever makes you feel better, fine. However, just be authentic. Don't feel outside pressure or influence. And comparison, compare and contrast. Comparison is the thief of joy and all those things. Find again what works for you. If you want to go get some Botox, fine. Okay. You want to start exploring testosterone replacement therapy, fine. Okay. Whatever you're doing and whatever you think is going to help you, own it. But I also think that we should enjoy the process, and we should enjoy the time of getting older. And I like some of the wrinkles, I don't mind being bald. I wish I would have known how happy I was to be bald earlier, when I wasted all this time on my heavy metal hair, for all sorts of years and everything else. I don't want to be fat and bald. I've said that. Listen, okay. There are things I can control and things I can't. So I would prefer not to be fat and bald. Okay. But I'm very happy and very content with being bald. If you're a guy that's not, and you want to go do something about that, fine. If you want to explore other quote unquote anti-aging techniques or things that are available. I got no issue with that, but I also feel like, again, just be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. If you're 50, be the best fucking 50-year-old, that you can be. Don't be that guy who's like 50 trying to look like he's 20. Yellow Porsche is not going to solve your problem. Like if I dress exactly like my 18-year-old or my 15-year-old, like they don't even want to be next to me. Like there's a certain point where it crosses a little bit over, like, okay, that's just not you anymore. Like that's just, you passed that. Okay. You can go this far down. You can't go that, you can't go maybe that far.
As the gray hair started to settle in, my dad told me, listen, that gray hair just means that you're distinguished, not extinguished. So I've always appreciated that line right there, and I've used it ever since. So it's allowed me to embrace the gray hairs that I have. I remember when I got my hair cut a couple years ago, and I'm like, there's more gray down there than there is black. But that's I just like it. I'll never ever dye my hair because I have embraced that salt and pepper look, and I've embraced getting older. I would never ever want to go back to being 25. I don't know that I'd want to go back to 35 unless I was investing my money smarter. But that's really the only reason I would ever go back to those days.
Well, you're touching on some really great points there too, is for also about live without regret, and live in the moment and not living in the past. I've got great memories from my 20s, from my 30s, and even my early 40s. I don't want to go back living in those periods of time. And I tell my boys too, it's like, you don't want to peak in high school, either. When you see those guys, like, oh shit, that guy has nowhere to go but down. Okay, remember that guy?
You don't want to be buried in your Letterman's jacket. Yeah. Don't be buried in your Letterman's jacket.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. So, I feel like there's, it's a cliche now, but I think there is this real opportunity for us to get better with age in a lot of areas, particularly, again, all 6 of those F's. I think we can continue to get better in each one. Those are not age-specific categories. You don't graduate from any of those. Like you don't graduate from therapy. You don't graduate from fitness. You don't graduate from nutrition. Like, okay, I've eaten enough healthy meals. I'm done now. Like I've graduated. You don't graduate from any of these things. You don't finish there. You just keep going. So can I have the most fun at 49? Okay, I get a year at 49, make the most of it. I have the most fun that I've ever had at 50. I just think we keep going.
Brian knows I'm serious when I say this, but I'm going to extend this challenge out to all of our listeners as well. Start a spreadsheet and put the 6 F's in one column, and then in the other column, talk about what it is in the 6 F's that you are embracing right now. And then in the third column, what are the things that you want to embrace 2, 3, 4 years down the way? And if you can't figure that out, my recommendation is to get in contact with Greg. You can find him at www.midlifemail.com. You can listen to his podcast, The Midlife Mail. Greg, thank you so much for being on the show. I am going to listen to this episode multiple times and really reflect on a lot of the things you said and put them into action.
Guys, thank you so much. Billy, Brian, this was a blast, and you guys are awesome. And any way I can help you with your mission as well, I'm happy to do it. And you got time to listen to this over and over again. Again, you're single. You're single. You said, hey, I'm all charged up. Okay, Brian and I we got shit to do.
Right on.
I've been listening to like some argument going on downstairs. Okay, while we've been recording this, going, thank goodness I'm up here with a terrific excuse. And whatever they're heatedly discussing, I'm going to find out in about 7 minutes.
I'm living it, brother. I know. I hear you.
I've got shit to do. God, come on.
You stop arguing down there. I'm trying to be mindful in my midlife crisis up here, okay?
It's not all puppies and rainbows over here in single man life, all right? I mean, yes, I'm going to Thailand in a couple of months, but I mean, there's things I got to do in between then, so.
Yes, it sounds like it. You go plan your Thailand trip. I'm going to go downstairs and get my ass handed to me. Yeah, really. You're working up there, right? Okay, I got to be down here handling this. Kids don't have school tomorrow. They both want to go out until midnight. And you're up there, pretending this is work. Okay.
Oh, man. Greg, thank you so much for being on the show. For Greg, for Brian, this is Billy. Thank you for listening to the Mindful Midlife Crisis. May you feel happy, healthy, and loved. Take care, friends. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the Mindful Midlife Crisis podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If this episode resonates with you, please share it with your family and friends. We will do our best to put out new content every Wednesday to get you over the midweek hump. If you want episodes to be downloaded automatically to your phone each week, all you need to do is hit the checkmark, subscribe, like, or follow button, depending on what podcast format you're using. While you're at it, feel free to leave our show a quick 5-star review with a few kind words so more people like you can easily find our show. If you're really enjoying the show and you want to help us out, feel free to make a donation to www.buymeacoffee.com/MMC podcast. That's www.buymeacoffee.com/MMC podcast. You can also access the link in our show notes. We use the money from these donations to pay whatever expenses we incur from producing the show, but ultimately, we record this show for you. So if you keep listening, we'll keep recording and releasing new episodes each week regardless. If you'd like to contact us, or if you have suggestions about what you'd like us to discuss on future episodes, feel free to email us at mindfulmidlifecrisis@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at mindful_midlife_crisis. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to the articles and resources we reference throughout the show. Thanks again for listening. May you feel happy, healthy, and loved. Enjoy the show.